Imagine a world where a tiny group of people silently controls the wealth of the entire planet, so powerful they can influence governments, markets, and even wars that most of us never notice. This isn't a story from a thriller movie. It's the story of the silent coup that gave bankers control of the world's wealth. For centuries, people believed wealth was earned through labor, innovation, or trade. But what if the real power never came from what we produce, but from who controls the money itself? To understand this story, we have to go back centuries, to the birth of modern banking. In the 17th century, a few European families began to dominate finance, lending money not just to merchants, but to entire nations. These weren't ordinary lenders, they were architects of the financial system itself. The Medici in Italy, the Rothschilds across Europe, and a handful of others discovered a powerful secret: control the flow of money, and you control power. Governments desperate for funds to wage wars or be. The origins of this silent coup are rooted in one deceptively simple invention: the central bank. While it sounds like a neutral institution meant to stabilize economies, its creation quietly shifted the balance of power from elected governments to private financiers. Take the Bank of England. Founded in it didn't just manage money, it effectively loaned the government its own currency at interest. Every pound borrowed meant every citizen was paying a silent tax to bankers. Over time, this model spread globally, from the US Federal Reserve to the Bank of France and beyond. The twist is that central banks aren't fully government institutions. They operate independently, often privately controlled, yet they wield the power to create money literally out of thin air. The 20th century was the era where this silent control became nearly complete. After 2 world wars, the winners didn't just redraw borders, they redrew the financial system. The 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement established a new global economic order, linking nations' currencies to the US dollar, which itself was backed by gold reserves controlled by banks and governments. This created a global dependency, ensuring that a handful of financial institutions held disproportionate influence. Banks weren't just lenders anymore, they were the invisible backbone of international power. Decisions made in London, New York, and Zurich could ripple across continents. A financial panic in one city could trigger recessions halfway around the world, and most people never realized who was pulling the strings. Every empire eventually faces a reckoning, and banking is no exception. The 2008 financial crisis was a wake-up call, an earthquake caused by the very system that had grown unchecked for centuries. Banks had been creating complex financial instruments, derivatives, mortgage-backed securities, and more often with little oversight. When the housing bubble burst, governments around the world stepped in with trillions of dollars in bailouts, yet the bankers themselves were largely untouched. The wealthiest institutions walked away while ordinary people lost homes, jobs, and savings. It was a moment when the illusion cracked. Power was not derived from production, democracy, or merit. It was derived from controlling the system of money itself. Since 2008, attempts to reform the system have largely failed. Regulations were put in place, but loopholes remain. Central banks continue to create money with quantitative easing, often enriching the financial elite while leaving the middle class behind. Income inequality has soared, wealth concentration has reached historic highs, and the cycle repeats. The pattern is clear. Crises occur, governments intervene, banks stabilize, and the cycle begins again. The system is resilient for the elite. Even innovations like cryptocurrencies, while promising decentralization, face growing regulatory pressures, often guided by the very institutions that the technology sought to bypass. History shows that the more things change, the more the structure of power remains the same. Today, the story is more relevant than ever. Global debt has reached over $300 trillion. Central banks manipulate interest rates, create money digitally, and intervene in markets more frequently than ever. The richest 1% now control over half of the world's wealth, while ordinary citizens struggle with stagnating wages and rising costs. We see repeating patterns: crises followed by bailouts, wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, and governments forced to comply with financial realities they cannot control. The silent coup that began centuries ago didn't just stop, it evolved, becoming more sophisticated and harder to detect. So what can we learn from this history? 3 key takeaways stand out. First, power isn't always visible. We often think of governments as the ultimate authority, but controlling money can be an even more effective form of power. Second, crises are opportunities for consolidation. Every financial crash benefits those who control the system, a recurring historical pattern, not a random occurrence. And third, awareness is the first defense. Understanding the mechanisms behind wealth and money creation is the first step toward accountability and, potentially, reform. The silent coup is not a myth. It is a series of deliberate decisions, centuries in the making, that quietly concentrated wealth and influence. The question isn't whether it happened, but what we do now that we understand it. Will we allow history to repeat itself, or finally demand a system that serves the many, not just the few? Money is more than numbers on a screen. It is power, and power, when left unchecked, shapes the world in ways most of us never see. If you found this exploration eye-opening, consider subscribing and sharing. Understanding the forces that shape our world is the first step to changing them. History often whispers, but it always repeats for those who don't listen.